All right, guys, welcome to the Life Upgrade podcast, and this is your host, Fulfillment Obi. Today, we're talking about something that will really empower you, empower your financial life and your financial decisions. So, we're talking about breaking barriers, rewriting the poverty narrative. So, we're going to really focus on generational poverty and how it affects the life of individual, their story, their success, and their journey to destiny.
Life Upgrade Podcast.
First, we're going to look about the general generational poverty and its characteristics. So imagine this. There are children who are born into poverty, like extreme poverty. They don't know where the next meal is going to come from. They don't know how they're going to survive the next day. In fact, surviving the next day is a luxury they can't even dream of or imagine. So when you look at people like this, you'll find that the past 50, 30, 20 years, their family line have been suffering poverty. This is someone that his great grandfather is poor, his grandfather is poor, his own father is poor, and he is born into that family of poverty. And there's every tendency for him to take up that poverty into the next generation. So this is what we call the poverty, generational poverty, and how it has crippled the life of a lot of people. But contrary to popular belief, this is not just because the family are not doing their best or they are not trying enough. Most times it's as a result of various systemic forces that are enforcing or influencing poverty in such people's life. So we have different kind of poverty. We have health poverty, we have social poverty, we have emotional poverty, you understand, we have educational poverty and a lot of other poverty that come together to cripple the lives of these children, of these people, or of a people from a particular community or an environment. So we're really going to focus on how we can break out from such barriers that have been dealing with people for generations upon generations. So many, the thought of breaking free from poverty is something they can't even imagine. Most times, why poverty is transferred from generation to generation is because the family or the bloodline do not really understand what it means to live a life of wealth or of prosperity. So subconsciously they pass on the mindset of poverty from generation to generation, and it is impossible for them to break free from such strongholds. We're going to discuss the systemic factors that are responsible for poverty, where we see a particular community, a country, a nation crippled by poverty. Poverty means different for different people. To some people, their own definition of poverty is not having the latest bags, the fashion designer clothes, the latest iPhone or iPad, the latest computer. They don't look cool, or they are not able to visit that popular restaurant in town. But that's just absurd. On the flip side, there are people who are struggling to survive on a daily basis. They lack access to healthcare, to education, to good food. They are malnourished. Their society or community is crippled. They have no means of transportation. There is no way those people can even make any reasonable impact to the society because every aspect of their life is poor. So those are such of the things we're talking about. So if you're there, you're thinking that because you don't have the latest designer clothes, you're poor, then you really need to think again. You need to make research. You need to see what's really going on in people's life. So most of the factors that influence poverty are first government policies. You understand? Mostly in third world nations, their policies concerning poverty is really, really bad. Most of those nations are actually struggling. 80% of their population is struggling to survive. And so every economic avenue for poverty to be elevated is always crippled by corruption. So you see people in minority or in a locality struggling to survive, struggling to eat, struggling to feed, struggling to have access to clean water and all those stuff. Educational system is bad, transportation system is bad, healthcare facilities is not present, and so these people's life are impoverished. And that's really, really sad. So such policies and government intervention not properly managed can lead a lot of people to generational poverty. The question is this: how do we solve this problem? How do we break the poverty loop? How do we begin to educate people, or how do we begin to change the systemic paradigm that influences the society and pushes people to poverty? What can we begin to do? So first, before we get into that, we're going to share real life examples and stories of people who have actually overcome such poverty in their life, break through the barrier and broke the bonds of and the chains of poverty that haunted their generation for years. So I'm just going to give you some few examples, and I believe they will really help you. So first, let's talk about the community initiative in the United States. The Annie E. Casey Foundation Family Center Community Change Efforts supported community initiative in Buffalo, New York, Columbus, Ohio, San Antonio, Texas, and the rest. This initiative focused on two-generational approach to help parents and children move out of poverty, together integrating child and adult education and economic sources service. Now, what you must understand about this is that there's something called a two-gen effort to elevate poverty, and this goes a long way by helping both the parents and the children and the younger generation together to see how they can combat poverty by providing amenities to them, education, healthcare services, mentorship to help them elevate poverty. So Annie E. Casey Foundation have really pushed forward to doing that. And if you search through YouTube, you find her on TED Talk talking about how it is so difficult for people to escape poverty, and she really did a lot of good work explaining the universal basic income. I won't go into that in this podcast, but you can look that up. So people have also go ahead to empower women through education. So the Life and Learn program in Arizona provides women affected by poverty and violence with education, career training, life skill mentoring, and financial coaching. This program has helped many women like Maria to gain strength and support and to achieve economic independence. Notice the word economic independence. Most times women and children, especially women, are most time placed at a disadvantage point in society. It is very difficult for them to break the poverty line in their family. It takes a whole lot of effort for them to do that, and we can see that a lot of organizations are coming on to empower women with skills, with mentorship, providing support so they can break free from the poverty hole. So let's talk about individuals that have actually done this and they were successful. So this is to help you understand that you can actually break out from the poverty loop and shatter the bonds of generational poverty in your life. One of the most notable public figure who broke out of generational poverty is Oprah Winfrey. Born into poverty in rural Mississippi, she faced numerous adversities, including sexual abuse and teenage pregnancy. Despite these challenges, she rose to become a global media leader and philanthropist. Those who know Oprah Winfrey will know she has done quite a lot. Her story is outstanding, is one in a million. She was able to break through poverty because of her resilient spirit. So first thing first, for you to be able to break out from generational poverty, you must understand that the financial advice your parents might give to you as you're growing up might not be the best, because they have not been able to use such advice or skills or information to change their life. So the first thing first is to have access to mentorship, someone who can guide you, is to have access to good education, not just what you learn in school, but practical wisdom that will help you break the bounds of poverty. And that's first starts by having a mindset change, a mindset shift, which is extremely difficult for most people, especially those who do not have access to any form of education. They only believe that this is the only way to break out of poverty because it's what my parents say, and it becomes a deep-rooted belief that becomes difficult for people to break out from poverty. So just like Oprah Winfrey's story, she was able to do that because she undergo a series of change despite the challenges. So most people believe that when their life is so difficult and things are not working for them, they are not destined to break out of poverty. So they are forced to live limited life, and they are not able to contribute to society, express their gift, or do anything worth doing because they believe that their adversity and whatever they are going through is enough reason and excuse for them to remain poor. And and so they continue to pass the poverty from generation to generation. Now, this another story is Duncan Campbell's story. Duncan Campbell is an example of someone who dedicated his life to breaking the cycle of poverty. He founded the Friends of Children program, which focused on creating sustained relationship to transform at-risk youth communities. Yes, so we see people who are already who dealt with generational poverty, like Duncan Campbell. He not just stopped there. He went ahead to begin to empower people. So this is what happens when you break the chains of generational poverty. It doesn't just end with you. You go on to empower people so they can live better life. And one bad thing about poverty is that it keeps you limited. It destroys your self-confidence, and you will never be able to do some certain things you're supposed to do with your life. Let's move ahead to talk about Mildred's success story. Mildred in the Philippines. In the rural barangay Santa Teresa in Bicol, Philippines, Mildred and her family live on a single income earned by her father as a tricycle taxi driver. Through education and formal employment, Mildred have been able to contribute significantly to her family well-being and break the cycle of poverty. Again, information and opportunities which a lot of people do not have. So if you're there, you are finding it, you say, I come from a poor background, I don't really have access to this and that. There is something you can do. You can educate yourself. We have vast arrays of information online that will help you to break poverty. There are people that are willing to help. Maybe you've not begun the journey because you're still giving excuse. No matter how bad the situation can be, you can also break free from the bounds of poverty. So the next thing I want to talk about is the challenges that keeps people from breaking free from the bounds of poverty and help them to take it to the next generation and the next and the next. Now, if you understand the challenges, then you have already solved half of the problem. Now, number one is persistent income inequality. Persistent income inequality. Income disparities make it difficult for those in poverty to access resources, education, and opportunities. The gap between the rich and the poor remains a significant challenge. How can we solve this problem? It starts by understanding that the problem exists. Yes, there are persistent income inequality in most nations, a problem for every nation, especially those nations that are practicing the capitalist system of government. But what you can do is that to every problem and every challenge, there is always an opportunity for you to grow and to learn and to look at what is applicable in the society and uphold it. So mostly, to deal with this problem is the ability to provide value at a certain state. So if you provide value and that value is needed by a whole lot of people, the demand is strong, you move closer to breaking that line of poverty. Even if there's income disparities, there's inequality between income. So the rich and the poor, they all need one thing, which is value. If you're able to solve problems, they are one step ahead of the problem. Number two is lack of education. We've talked about it. People do not have access to education. Good education mostly end up in poverty. When we talk about education, it doesn't just stop at going to college, having a formal education, but financial literacy, which most times is not being taught in school. And that is why it is very difficult for a lot of people to manage their finances. They don't understand the relationship between themselves and money, and most times it is extremely difficult for them to manage their finances. So if they get to the threshold of breaking free from poverty, their ignorance concerning money pulls them back and returns them back to the loop. Number three is healthcare barriers. Poor healthcare can exacerbate poverty. Limited access to healthcare, high medical costs, and inadequate health insurance prevent individuals from breaking free from poverty. Health is wealth. Now, in most communities and most localities, people deal with adverse diseases, things, because when people don't have access to clean water and to good food, they are malnourished, it is easy for them to contract diseases. And what makes this worse is that there are no adequate healthcare facilities, which raises the concern. So to be able to break out from poverty, they must first have good access to medical facilities and healthcare system to help preserve their life. And this is what I'll throw to the government So they knew that these things are needed, so they can do much more. We can begin to advocate that the government should provide such facilities so that people will be able to at least live a manageable life. If we have unstable employment, household instability, you understand, food security, social exclusion, limited social capital, debt burden, social exclusion, most of these things contribute to the problem people deal with when they are trying to pull out from poverty. I won't be able to go into them in depth, so and these are most of the challenges we face. So we're going to focus on a plan, how you should implement if you are going to break out from generational poverty. I know you will be the first person in your family to pull them away from poverty, and these are the things you can start doing right now that will really help you achieve that. Number one, you need to understand your limitations. So if you live in a third world country like me, you should understand that there are no good roads, there are not good infrastructure, healthcare is not present, there is high income inequality, debt burden, lack of access to capital, all those things are present. Yes, I know those are my limitations. So understanding your limitation first goes a long way to helping you craft the perfect plan to deal with the problem of poverty. If you do not know the challenges you're dealing with, if you do not understand the challenges, then it becomes extremely difficult for you to come up with a game-changing plan. So what are your situation? What are your limitations? Understanding this helped me to think outside the box. First one. Number two is mindset change and mindset shift. Poverty is hardwired into so many people's life, into so many people's brain. They have been indoctrinated by their families, by the educational system, by what is acceptable, generally acceptable by the society, which becomes a difficult problem for them breaking through poverty. You understand? So someone who thinks that the only way to get to break out of poverty is only by going to college and nowhere else. Once that person don't have access to college or finance to enroll in college, he takes that as excuse and remain in poverty, not seeing an alternative route. So how do your mind work? What do you think about money? Do you think that you just have to keep working hard and hard and hard, struggling till you die? No, you have to change your mind. You have to look what the society needs. You have to ask yourself, what am I going to learn? What should I engage myself in? What can I do to provide value on a higher level? How can I elevate my life? How can I change my habit? How can I become a better person? What can I do to have access to people who have the funds and the resources to help me get to my goals? How will I be able to package this gift I have and present to the market so it can sell and also provide me finances or monetary gain in return? These are the questions you need to start asking yourself. When you start asking yourself such kind of question, it means your mindset concerning money and poverty is already changing. Number three is the principle of working. Principle of working. So many people look for employment. Most times they are underemployed. They are not paid enough, and so they are unable to cover for their expenses on a daily basis, which becomes a difficult problem. Once your transportation, commuting becomes a problem, feeding becomes a problem, you will be unable to deliver your best on the job, especially when you know the job is not really paying you what you deserve. So once that is the case, you have to start looking for alternative routes, looking for how to create multiple streams of income and reduce the burden placed on you by time. You understand? We all have 24 hours in a day. We can only do so much. What you should do is to try as much as possible to see how you can make as much as you can small time that you have. So if you've been making $10 a month, why not find a way to make $10 per hour for the week? You can find a way to try to make time work for you, and this takes a whole lot of process. Journey is a difficult journey, but once you start the process, then you have actually started something that will lead to a better future. Now I'm going to bring this up here. I've talked about remote work. Remote work is one of the things that will really help you, especially if you are from a third world nation, to break out from poverty. I just love that it's specific to those who have grand plan and design for your life. You're not yet there, you don't have the finances to get there yet, but you can start a remote work. And I've talked about this on my podcast. Look at other episodes that will help you to to get started. And to put the cherry on the cake, I just wrote a book called Remote Work, The Complete Guide, which is available. I'll link it in the description of this podcast, containing all the information that you need to break out from poverty, to start a remote work, interviews, how to build a remote team, everything about remote work. The full complete guide is there. So if you want a book from yourself, if you want to change if you are really serious of breaking the poverty bounds and generational poverty bound that have been holding you back, then I would really advise you to get that book. Cost just a little, about $5-6. You get a book and you read, and you'll be able to know what to do so you can break out from poverty. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is persistence and resilient spirit. Now, if you look, we talked about Oprah Winfrey. She dealt with a whole lot of challenges. Everyone who has ever become great in life or who have attained a high status did not just appear on the top. You understand? People who go to the top by mistake always live there by mistake. So it's a journey. It's a process that takes time. And within the point you are and the place you're trying to get you're going to be persistent and resilient, because a whole lot of things is going to go wrong. You're going to fail multiple times. You are not going to get it in one try. You are going to try over and over again till you begin to get it. And sometimes you're going to feel frustrated, and sometimes you're going to feel like, oh my God, this isn't working. This is not what I want. So those feelings of frustration should empower you to keep chasing, to keep moving, to keep pushing. But you must ensure that whatever you're doing will produce the result. You must not put your efforts into what is not going to yield any result in the day, and that's what we call wasted effort. And if you don't want that to be the case, please follow the Life of Great podcast, and most importantly, subscribe to the newsletter, the Paragon Legacies newsletter, that will always feed you with information that will help you empower your life. And if you want to get in contact with me personally to help me so I can answer your question, I'm on WhatsApp. You can reach me on WhatsApp. My number will be in the description of this podcast. Just send me a hi on WhatsApp and I'll be willing to help. I want to help as many people as I can, whatever the challenges is financially. I want to help as I can to provide the right tools and resources that will help everyone to grow. So I will personally coach, assist, and help you as I can, so you can start from point A and get to point B and be able to break that bounds of generational poverty that has been rolling over your life. So this is it for the Life Upgrade podcast this week. If you really enjoyed this podcast, why not help us share it so other people can come on board and also listen? So there are two versions of this podcast. There's the audio and the video. For you to get the video versions of this podcast, go over to fulfillmentob.substack.com. Go there to our publication. You can get the video there, or you can search for my name on YouTube, Fulfillment OB on YouTube. You have the access to the video part of this podcast if you really love videos. So that being said, if you have any question, you can go over to the publication page and drop a comment or send me a mail, godfulfill@gmail.com. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode. It was really amazing. It was really wonderful, and I want to believe that you've learned a whole lot. So I want you to stay empowered. I'll see you in the next episode.